My cat is eating. Let me just let her finish. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Court, and on this channel we yap about books and obsess over books together. So today I am here to talk about my top 24 reads of 2024. My top 10 of 2024 was very easy to make. However, from 11 to 24 was very difficult for me because I had some very good 4.5 to 5-star reads that were in the 11 to 24 top of my list. So it was very difficult for me to put those in kind of a ranking order and pick between the ones that I rated between like a 4.5 to a 4.75 to a 5-star for my top reads. I'm very lucky that I had a lot of good reads this year. I also had a lot of bad reads, but we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about the highs of 2024. So without further ado, let's just jump right into my top 24 reads of 2024. I'm going to go from the bottom up. So I tried to put them in the best order as possible, but take this with a grain of salt, as this may change as I think about these books, or it may stay the same. I don't know. But as of right now, this second, this is my top 24 of 2024. Let's just get into it. So, starting with number 24 of the year, we actually have a horror book. We have This Wretched Valley. This I read kind of recently, I want to say in November. This is about a PhD student who is looking for a new place for rock climbers to climb and a new place to kind of put his PhD dissertation together. So he is in the beginning flying around to find a new kind of rock formation, and they find this valley with this very massive rock. I'm not really familiar with all the rock climbing terms, but it's got a big like cliff that you can rock climb if you're down at the bottom, basically. So he gets this group of people together, his friend who is a rock climber, her boyfriend who is also a rock climber, this other PhD student from his school who knows a lot about nature, knows a lot about the kinds of things that are in plants and studies kind of nature and knows what's poisonous and what's not, and keeps kind of a field guide the entire time they're there, and then himself who is writing the dissertation. So all of these people go to this valley to try to make new routes for rock climbing and get this dissertation done. However, when they get to this valley, weird things start happening, and kind of things they can't explain begin to happen, and you just follow their journey through this weird kind of circumstance. It does begin, the very first chapter kind of spoils the ending for you, and you kind of learn what happens to them in the aftermath of the valley, and then you go back to where it all begins. So I kind of like how books are set up like that. I have a few in my top 24, I believe, that are set up like that, where you know what happens in the beginning and then you learn the entire story throughout. I don't always like a story like that, but when it's done right like this, I do really enjoy it. So I highly recommend this if you are into horror and like and can handle the gory details. This was a fantastic read. I absolutely loved it. This was my favorite horror book of the year. Number 23, we have The X-Vows by Jessica Joyce. I read this when it came out, kind of close to when it came out. I believe it was a book club pick for my book club. This follows Georgia and Eli, and they are flying back to this town for their best friend's wedding. They both have the same best friend. He is getting married. They used to be in a relationship and they are no longer. So they kind of have to put their differences aside so that they can be in their best friend's wedding. The setting is so picturesque. I always love a good wedding in a book, especially if it's not the couple that we are following. I absolutely ate it up. This book was so sweet. I underlined so many quotes. Jessica Joyce's writing is something so special. I read her little novella at the end of 2023 and then got into her full-length novels this year, and she has easily become one of my new auto-buy authors this year. I absolutely ate this book up. Georgia and Eli were forced back together for their friend's wedding, and things that can go wrong just go wrong. literally everything that goes wrong goes wrong. However, they have to put their differences aside, even though they were in a relationship in the past, to make their best friend's wedding the best that they can possibly make it, because it's their responsibility for their best friend to have the best wedding that he could possibly have. So, like I said, the quotes in this are just fantastic. I think about quotes in this book every single day. This is one of my favorite second chance romances I've read in a very long time. I highly, highly, highly recommend anything Jessica Joyce writes. Let me just read you a quote. How strange is it to have a first for the second time? How lucky and messy and perfect. It makes my eyes sting, even though all of this is just temporary. Stop. I'm gonna cry thinking about them. Perfect. Number 22 is a book I don't own, but it's a book I read recently. I finished in the beginning of December, and it has stuck with me, and I constantly talk about this book anytime I get the chance to talk about it. It was so unique. Nothing like I've ever read before, because it was my first kind of dip into this genre, and I can't wait to read more like it. It is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This was my first Stephen King book. I can't believe that I've never read Stephen King until now, and I don't plan on stopping. This book was amazing. It may have been like 900 pages, but it was so good. I was so amazed at the way Stephen King knew so much about the goings on behind the scenes of the JFK assassination and what Lee Harvey Oswald was doing to write a story about stopping the assassination. This follows our main character, Jake, and Jake is given this mission by somebody who knows there's a portal to the past to stop JFK's assassination. And you kind of follow his journey along the way, because the portal only goes to 1958. And if you can't tell by the title, he has to wait until 1963 to stop the assassination. So he has to go into the portal, plan in the past, be in the past for all these years, and then stop the assassination. So you follow his story by him going into the portal and living in the past and finding Lee Harvey Oswald and making this plan to then stop the assassination of JFK. It was so well thought out. The plot is, while the book is long, the plot slowly progresses. It's a very good slow burn plot that has a very good payoff in the end. However, this book is the most frustrating book I think I have read all year. I don't want to spoil if you need to read, but it was so good. I think about this book constantly. I talk about it whenever I can. It was my first kind of dive into a historical fiction, while not only having just historical fiction with some magical realism-esque to it. I loved every bit of it. I ate this book up. The 860 some pages that it was flew by. Absolutely loved it. Cannot wait to read more by Stephen King. Now for my 21st spot. I liked this series as a whole, but this is my favorite out of the series. We have As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This book I also read very recently. I just kind of finished it like a week ago. I feel like this is hit or miss for some people. You either love the first one or you love this one. I don't know a lot of people that like the second one. But for me, I loved this one. This one had me hooked the entire time. I did figure out what was going to happen very soon in the middle of the book, but the way that I knew what was going to happen but was still shocked to my core, and the way that Holly Jackson toes the line between adult and young adult in her books is fantastic to me. I absolutely ate this book up. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read this series, but the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series is following our main character Pippa, and she is doing a project on a murder in her small town, and everyone believes that this guy named Sal killed his girlfriend Andy and then killed himself. Pip thinks he didn't do either of those things. So she's there to prove everyone wrong and figure out who actually killed Andy and if some foul play happened with Sal. The series goes on and you're just following Pippa do her thing. It's very much for the true crime girlies, and I very much appreciated it. I could not stop thinking about this book. I did not want to put it down. It's one of my favorite thriller series ever. I need more series like this. I cannot wait to read more Holly Jackson books. I'm super glad I decided to finish this series this year, because this one was so good and the ending to the series was magnificent. I cannot wait to read more like this and read more Holly Jackson. In the 20th spot is another book that I don't own, but I love very, very much. We have Lost and Lassoed. Lost and Lassoed, I believe I gave a 4.75, but I'm bumping it up to a 5-star. I absolutely adore this book. It's my favorite in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I just love them. You're following our female main character, Teddy, who loses her job at a consignment shop that she loves so, so much to her and is so near and dear to her heart. And in comes Gus Ryder, who is, I believe that's the FMC's brother from the first book, Done and Dusted, but you're following Gus and Teddy. And Gus is a single dad, so he gives Teddy a job as the nanny to his child while he is working on the ranch because he needs somebody to watch her because her mom is out, I believe, doing something for law school or towards her lawyer-esque something. I believe. I don't really remember the nitty gritty details. I just remember loving Gus and Teddy's dynamic as they go from hating each other to this very sweet and intimate relationship that really thrives. And I remember absolutely loving Gus's daughter. She and Teddy's relationship really solidified my love for this book, and the way that the relationship went from rocky to something so sweet, and it just made me literally like frothing at the mouth for them. They just understood each other in a way that not many people can understand another human being, and I just really resonated with me, and I really appreciated Lila Sage's writing in this book specifically. I don't think I related to Teddy as much as I related to the FMC in Swift and Saddled, but I loved Lost and Lasso's relationship and the payoff at the end of the book way more. That's why this one made my list and why I'm bumping it up from a 4.75 to a 5. 19th place, we have Not Safe for Work by Lindsay Lanza. Let me tell you something. Anything Lindsay Lanza writes, I will get my little paws on it and I will read it immediately. This book was sent to me, I believe I bought it off her Etsy shop and then immediately read it, like right when I got it. I will always love Lindsay's writing. I have rated every single book that she's written a 5-star. This is no different. I read her other 2 books last year, and then this is the only book I've read by her this year, because it did come out this year, and then she has another one coming out next year. This is called Not Safe for Work because they are work colleagues. This follows Olivia and Gavin. Olivia is working really hard to get the promotion that she deserves, and honestly has been working toward her entire career. And enter Gavin Scott. Gavin Scott has literally been handed everything while he's been working at this company, and she's forced to work with him even though he hates her. At least she thinks he hates her. Little does she know that he's literally obsessed with her. Like, when I say boy obsessed, this book is so boy obsessed, and I ate it up. I have never read a boy obsessed book that I have loved so much other than this one. Lindsay is an indie author, if you didn't know, and all of her books are so good. The writing in them, they're comparable to Abby Jimenez because they'll have you laughing on one page and crying on the next page. And I literally eat these books up. They're spicy, they're cute, they're romantic. They have the most amazing quotes and the most amazing relationships in her books. I absolutely eat them up every single time. This book, it's got workplace romance, it's got a workplace trip, it's got a little forced proximity. I believe they are fake dating to impress the boss. It's got a little bit of everything, and while it is trope heavy, I believe everything is done very well and not too much. I absolutely ate this book up. Do yourself a favor. Read this book immediately. 18th place. I just teared up reading some quotes from this book. The Dead Romantics. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did, and I read it after The 7-Year Slip. The 7-Year Slip, I love that book. However, this book, I love this book. I, if you can't tell, love so many quotes from this book, and I was just sitting here reading some, and I teared up. This follows Florence Day. She's a ghostwriter. She goes to her publisher and asks for an extension. She doesn't get an extension. Then, for some unforeseen circumstance, she has to go home. Her family owns a funeral home, and she has to go there, and unfortunately, one day this ghost just starts following her around, and it's her publisher. How he got there, why he's there, she doesn't know, but she has this ability to see ghosts and try to help them move on. So she is very concerned why he's there, because that's her agent, publisher, I'm not really sure. However, you're just following them, and she's in a writing slump, and he's just kind of helping her move on through this terrible time in her life, honestly, and it's just so powerful. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read this, but the quotes in here are so magical. Florence is learning to love herself while also learning that love isn't dead, and it's just so magical. It's a perfect read during spooky season because it does have the setting of a funeral home, there's ghostly magical realism, it's just everything, and I absolutely ate it up. I will forever love this book, and I will forever cry when reading one of these quotes in here. So I highly recommend this book. I absolutely love it. I'm going to try not to yap too long, so this video is not 17 years long. Speaking of 17th place, we have Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serrell. So, Serrell? I believe that's how you say her name. I always love Rebecca Serrell's writing. One of her books, The Edge of Falling, I believe it's called, is a book that got me back into reading in 2021, 2022, around that time. And ever since then, I have picked up a book of hers every year. I absolutely love them so much. This one is no different. I rated this one 5 stars. It is on my top 24 for a reason. You're following our main character, Daphne, who gets a slip of paper every time she meets a man, and it has an expiration date of their relationship. And so she knows when the relationship is going to expire, but she never tells the man. However, one day she meets this random guy and she gets a slip of paper, but it's blank. So you're basically following her trying to figure out why this paper is blank. Are they even having a relationship? Does it not expire? What is going to happen? It is a women's fiction mixed with romance, and it is comparable to Emily Henry. I absolutely love her writing. Absolutely love it. All of her books are very short, very fast paced. I read them almost in a day every time I read them. I just love them so much. Highly recommend. 16th place, we have another book that I read on my Kindle. That's Take It Offline by Dani McLean. I eat up Dani's writing. She's another indie author that I absolutely love and is so near and dear to my heart. Take It Offline is no different. It is a book following Emma and Charlie. They are workplace rivals. They are fighting for the same position, and then they're forced to try to kind of work together and show who's better suited for the position. But they don't like each other. And then something happens with Emma's ex, and Charlie agrees to help her make him jealous. That's all I'm gonna say. It is so good. The writing is so good. There's such a deeper meaning behind what is going on in these characters' lives that you learn along the way, and you learn to fall in love with them and all of their mistakes, even though they're just trying to do their job and live their lives. And it is so sweet. And I absolutely ate this book up. I think about this book quite often, and I just absolutely love them. One of my favorite romance books of the year that's just plain romance, and I absolutely loved it. Loved every second of it. Highly recommend. 15th place, we have A Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. This is a literary fiction following A.J. Fickery. In the beginning, you meet A.J. Fickery, and he is down bad. He is literally like losing the bookstore that he has owned. He gets his like one of a kind or special edition, limited edition Edgar Allan Poe poems stolen from him. He's just down bad. And then you follow his life when a unexpected gift is left on his doorstep and how that forever changes his life. And it is just such an unique and special story of a grumpy old man learning to fall in love with life again. And it got me. I cried so hard at this book. Gabrielle Zevin's writing is so good. I cannot wait to read her other book tomorrow. I think about this book constantly. The adaptation to the movie was also so good. I watched that this year, and that just solidified my love for this book. It's so short. I finished it in like a day and a half, but if you love books and you just love the simplest things in life, I think you'll absolutely eat this book up. Number 14 is Steal My Heart by Nellie Wilson. This book, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this book is a 4 stars. And then I finished it, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I read it at the perfect time because I was thinking a lot about my hometown, and I was thinking a lot about what was happening with the tornadoes that were happening in the Appalachian Mountains. And I read it at a specific time to where it really impacted my view on the book and what was happening in my real life. So that's why it really moved up and is now a 5-star and is one of my favorite books of the year. This book follows Kelly and Sam. Kelly is a lawyer who moved out of his small town as fast as possible, and I cannot relate to him anymore. Like, I moved out of my hometown as fast as possible, and I am currently working towards my law degree, so that's crazy how we are one and the same. However, he has to go back to his small town because his uncle's farmhouse is being sold because his uncle has passed away, so he has to fix up the farmhouse and or sell it. So he is flying back to his little small town. It also follows our female main character, Sam. She moved out of town for college, got her college degree, and immediately moved back. She is on this council for the town and absolutely does everything in her power to keep the town as it is and not move in any big things to take over her beloved town. You just watch these two people who used to be in a relationship try to work together to save their hometown, and it's just a magical experience. The cast of characters that you meet along the way is also so special and so unique, and it just felt like returning home. Like, if you've moved out of your hometown and you read this book, it'll feel like going home. And I don't think I can explain it any better than that. I just need you to read it. It's so good. 13th place, we have the book that I read very first this year. Literally the first book I ever read in 2024. Fourth Wing. Don't come for me. Okay? This is not everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine, and I'll drink it. It's good. Okay? I didn't love Iron Flame, but this book, I was sat on that couch and I didn't move until I finished this book, and I think about this book every day, and I cannot wait for Onyx Storm. If you don't know what Fourth Wing's about, it's about Violet Sorrengail, who goes to this college and her mom makes her go to the Rider Squadron so that she can either die or survive and get a dragon and join the war that they're in. That's literally all you need to know. Go in blind, read it, it's good. They have to do all of these things to pass this, like, not even this test, just be worthy of a dragon, and it's so good. It's the first ever dragon fantasy I read, and it will always stick with me, and it's just good. Okay? Okay. Number 12. Remember how I said the 7-Year Slip is so good? Yeah. It's in 12th place. Do you see how many quotes I highlighted in this book? It is almost, if this book was longer, it would compare to some other books, but in a book this size, I believe it is the most highlighted things I have ever highlighted in a book. This was my first Ashley Poston book, and I don't think anything will ever compare, unfortunately. This book really, really got me. I was in the middle of grief, and I had lost somebody really close to me, and I read this book, and I think that's why it hit me so hard. And I'm gonna cry. This book is just so good. Our main character, Clementine, loses her aunt, and she has to go back and to her aunt's apartment because she's given her aunt's apartment. However, little does she know that this apartment is magical and travels 7 years in the past. So one day when Clementine comes home, the apartment has traveled back 7 years, and this random guy is there. I am not a sucker for the right person, wrong time trope, but this book does it so well. They fall in love, but he's 7 years in the past. It's devastating. It is beautifully written. There's so many good quotes. Highly recommend if you haven't read it. Number 11, Jessica Joyce again. You with a View. Listen to me. This book, I don't think anything's gonna top this book from Jessica Joyce either. Like I just said with 7-Year Slip, this book is so good. Like the 7-Year Slip, our main character loses somebody very, very close to her, and I read these books very close together, and I was just on a journey. This follows Noelle. She loses her grandma, and she finds something that was in her grandmother's belongings about a secret lover. Not a secret lover, but a past lover from a whole nother lifetime. And so she posts a TikTok about, does anybody know who this man is? And little does Noelle know that it just so happens to be her arch nemesis from school's grandpa. So Theo contacts Noelle like, that's my grandpa. So Noelle goes to talk to this mystery man, and he talks about the road trip that they were supposed to go on together, the Noelle's grandma and Tim. And Noelle decides that she's going to go on this road trip, and Theo and his grandpa join her. So you just follow these characters on this road trip in a journey of grief and love and compassion, and it's so beautifully written. So beautifully written. There's so many good quotes in this book. I absolutely ate it up. Nothing will compare to the way grief was handled in this book so well to me. It is literally the most amazing thing I think I've read this year dealing with grief. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the top 10. I can't believe we've made it here, but we have. So without further ado, number 10, we have the Just Yours duet. The first one is Just Don't Call Me Yours. The second one is I Just Want to Be Yours by Heather Garvin. These books, I ate both of them up. These books are so good. These are like my guilty pleasure. These follow our main characters throughout college and a little beyond. You have to read them to know. This follows Jackson and Margot. Jackson and Margot end up being roomed across from each other in college. He is up playing his guitar too late one night, and Margot goes across the hall and asks him to tone it down. And a little after that, they just are constantly bickering and constantly at each other's throat until one day Jackson just kisses her out of the blue. And then you follow them through the rest of the story. I literally get giddy thinking about them. These two have my entire heart and soul. I love them more than anything in my life. This duet is one of my favorites I've ever read, and I just can't wait to reread it. The playlists that go along with these, if you read and listen to the playlist, it's such an immersive reading experience. I think that's what enhanced my reading experience and made me love them even more. She is a little Taylor Swift. He's a little Arctic Monkeys. They are nothing. They're nothing alike, but they work. And they're my favorite. Number 9. Next to You by Hannah Bottom Young. If you love Down on a Limb by Hannah Bottom Young, I highly suggest that you read this. Is it anything similar to Out on a Limb? No. Is it still Hannah Bottom Young's writing and you will love it? Yes. This follows Lane, who is in the middle of an identity crisis. She decides one day to buy a bus online, and she is going to renovate that bus and live in it. So she enlists the help of her friend's boyfriend's friend, Matt. You just kind of follow Matt and Lane building this bus, and you get to know them more, and you get to know their deeper story, just like Out on a Limb. And they take this bus and they travel in this bus later in the book. It's so good. It is just flawed people loving flawed people, and I love it so much. I honestly, this book I related to more than Out on a Limb, and I think that's why I like it more than Out on a Limb, but I just related to the flaws and the insecurities that Lane had and the imperfections. And I love the diversity and how much you learn about the characters in this book. It's just simply perfection. I absolutely love them so much. Number 8, Play Along by Liz Tom Ford. Mr. Isaiah Rhodes. I continue to fall in love with men, Liz Tom Ford writes. Ryan Shea and Isaiah Rhodes are at the top of the top, okay? This book follows our main character, Isaiah Rhodes, and you kind of see how he's been obsessed with our female main character, Kennedy, for a long time. However, she's been engaged until she isn't. And then one night, a drunken night in Vegas, they get married. And in order to not crumple either of their reputations, because Kennedy is Isaiah's doctor on his baseball team, they agree to fake their marriage. I love them so much. Like all of Liz Thomas Ford's books, you just see how down bad they are for each other, and you just see how I literally remember sitting on my couch literally giggling and kicking my feet at this book. It was so good. I loved them. I loved the deeper meanings that you get in this book. I love the deeper connections that they get after they agree to be fake married. I loved how soft-spoken Isaiah is with Kennedy and how out loud of a person he is with everyone else. It's just perfection. Isaiah Rhodes is something I need in my life, honestly. Number 7, we have More Than Just Us. This book, I also highlighted so many quotes. You're following our main character, Stella, who is kind of in a then and now timeline. Then she was in high school. She thought she had it all. She had the soccer captain. She thought she was going to college. Now Stella is forced to kind of face her past, and when her soccer captain Bridger moves back into town after an injury, they are kind of forced to face it together. And there is a lot about mental health in this book that I really enjoyed. Not that I enjoy mental health, but the representation and the diversity was dealt very gently and very wonderfully in this book in a way that I related to a lot. Stella's relationship with her mom is another thing I related to a lot in this book, and it was just something that I needed at the time and I absolutely loved. I can't recommend this book enough. It is a college slash, I wouldn't say young adult, but it is more a new adult, college moving into adulthood romance, and that is exactly the point of life I am in right now. So it just was right up my alley and I loved it a lot. So I kind of cheated, and 6 is 2 books together, but it is Binding and Keeping 13. I feel like I can't separate them. That feels like it's just not allowed. So I have Binding 13 and all of my tabs, and then I have Keeping 13 and all of my tabs. I did like Keeping 13 more, but I feel like they come as a package set. So for number 6, we have Binding and Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first and second book in the Boys of Tommen series. I plan to continue this series in 2025. These books are so deep, so trigger heavy, so everything wrong in the world happens in these books, but the way that Johnny cares so deeply for Shannon and will literally take a bullet for her is just something else. And Chloe Walsh's amazing writing and just the found family in these books is unmatched, and I cannot wait to continue this series in 2025. I have a feeling I'm going to love Joey and Aoife's books even more so than I love Johnny and Shannon's, but Johnny and Shannon's did something to me. I was sobbing for days after I finished Keeping 13, so I need to be emotionally ready for Saving and Redeeming 6, and when I am, I cannot wait to continue this series because this is shaping up to be a 5-star series. We have made it to my top 5, and in 5th place, we have Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Do you see those tabs? Every book I love, I tab. It's just something I do. This book, this series, I've said it before, Reckless was a little bit of a letdown, but this one specifically, you put some trials or a game in a fantasy book, and I'm sat. I'm there, I'm ready, I'm listening, I'm willing, I'm able, I'm ready. So, Powerless follows Peyton, who is an ordinary hiding amongst elites. In this society, elites were made out of this plague, and ordinaries are now cast out and killed if they are found. So Peyton is kind of hiding that she's an ordinary. In doing so, she happens to save our mailman character Kai, who is the enforcer for the king who kills these ordinaries, and it gets herself put in these trials that they hold, and you just follow her through these trials, and that is the first book. And it is amazing. This first book, I read it in, I believe, one sitting. Like, I just sat and I read the entire book. I love this series. Cannot wait for Fearless. I am ready. Number 4, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I get so giddy when I think about this book. This was my first Abby Jimenez book, and I am worried nothing will top it. But I haven't read anything else, so that's a bold statement. But the way I was literally laughing out loud on one page and sobbing the next, I knew this had to be a 5-star. This book follows Emma and Justin. They meet in a Reddit thread because Justin posts about how he is cursed because every time he meets somebody and they break up, they go on to find their true love soulmate person. And Emma just so happens to have this same kind of curse. So they agree to meet and date just for the summer to break each other's curses. And you follow them throughout this summer and watch them date and try to break this curse. And Justin is an acts of service king. If you haven't read this book, just go read it. It's so good. The audiobook is also fantastic for this book. Now we're on to my top 3. I have a romance, a fantasy, and a brand new genre that just so happens to be my top favorite book of the year. So my top romance of the year, and in my 3rd place spot is Unsteady. I mean, are you guys surprised by the amount of times I've talked about Unloved and Unsteady on this channel? Are you guys surprised? As I was talking about Binding and Keeping 13, this book is no different. The struggles that these characters go through are something no person should ever have to go through. And the relationships with parents are something I relate to in this specific book, and the way that these two characters find each other at the perfect time and are sounding boards for each other is something that made me really appreciative for what I have, and I have never felt so reflective and so represented in a book like this one until I found this book. And let's not cry. I can't say enough about this book. This book follows Reese, who is a hockey player for the college that we are attending, and he is coming back off of an injury and trying to prove that he is good enough to play. So he goes to this ice rink to practice and hone his skills to make sure that he is in shape to play for the upcoming season. At this ice rink, he meets figure skater Sadie and her brothers, because they are also practicing hockey, but they are younger, and she is their guardian, but basically the only person that watches them. And you just kind of watch them care for each other and practice together and understand each other in a way no one else can, and it's so magical. And it's one of the best books I have ever read, and one of my top romances of all time. Moving on to 2nd place, and my top fantasy of the year. No one should be surprised by this. Throne of Glass, the series. I'm counting the series as the whole thing. These are my 2 favorite books from the series, Empire of Storms and Kingdom of Ash. I also will be posting next week my Kingdom of Ash reading vlog and my full rundown, ranking, and rating of the series, so stay tuned for that. But just know that this is my 2nd favorite of the year. It changed my life. Literally changed my life. I just finished this like a few days ago, and I'm still reeling from the fact that I finished this. So if you know, you know. If I think about it too hard, I'll cry. I'm very emotional from this book right now. I am still in shock as well, but it's the best series I have ever read. This is my top series of all time, and the top fantasy series I think I will ever read. I like this more than I like Akatar, and I will take no critiques. And that's really all. I love this series with my entire heart, and I can't talk about it too much because I just finished Kingdom of Ash, and if I think about it too much, I'll cry. 2nd place. And finally, my top book of 2024. No one should be surprised. If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I don't know what it is about this book, but this book and me, like, I literally don't know what is in this book. I don't know if it's just the time that I read it. I don't know if it is the way that it's written. I literally could not tell you why I love this book so much. I can't formulate words to put in this video to express to you how much I love this book. I just read it, got it. I got it for my birthday. Read it. I'm like a week or 2 after that, and haven't stopped thinking about it since. I wake up and think about this book. Somebody asks me for a book rec, I recommend this book. I don't care who you are. Because I didn't read Dark Academia until I read this book, and now I need another book like this. Not too much like it, because I don't want to like something better than I like this book. I'm scared. But I am looking for the way that this book made me feel. I am chasing that feeling. Kingdom of Ash got really close, but I'm still chasing the way that this book made me feel. And I don't know what's going to do it, but I am constantly chasing the way that the ending of this book, the entirety of this book, made me feel. I started it. Here's how it went. I started this book, constantly thought about the characters. Whenever I was not reading this book, I wanted to be reading this book. Whenever I was not reading this book, I was telling people I was reading this book, and I was telling them the plot, and I was telling them I could not wait to continue reading this book. When I finished this book, I sobbed for days and reread it. When I finished reading this book, I reread it again. Twice. That's how good it is. When I finished reading this book, I thought about the characters and I thought about the quotes for days and I continue to think about the quotes in this book, I will pick this book off my shelf and read a quote. Just one quote. That gets me through my day. I don't know other than that how to express to you how much I love this book. But the dark academia, the way the characters act, behave, are towards each other, I sincerely don't know what's in this book. You're following a group of Shakespearean college students who are performing their hearts out at this art school in their last year, and tragedy strikes. And you're following it told from the future, from one of the point of views of the kids who were in it many years in the future after all of this has happened, him telling the story to somebody else. That's all I'm gonna say. The amount of underlined things I have in this book is astronomical, but I cannot express to you how much I love this book besides the words I just said. And I don't know if another book will ever top this book because I am constantly chasing the way that the end of this book made me feel, and I don't know what it is. But if you have any recs, please leave them down below, because this book did something to me and I plan to reread it very soon, even though I read it 3 times. That's how much I love this book, and that's why it's number 1. So please read this if you haven't. I absolutely love it. If you hate it, lie to me. Do you think I can hold all these books? I highly doubt it. There's so many right here. They're also upside down, so just ignore that. They're just falling. They're upside down. Ignore that they're upside down. But these are my top 24 for 2024. This is the year that I started my booktube, so it's kind of bittersweet, and I am so excited to see what 2025 brings. And thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and please leave me a comment down below what your top books of 2024 were so I can chat with you in the comments about them. And please do make sure to like and subscribe as always. And my other socials, if you want to see me somewhere else on the internet, are down in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!